Caleb's blood ran cold. On the gleaming television mounted in the cavernous kitchen, a news report was detailing the escalating fallout from a recent suicide at Sterling Corporation. The victim's family claimed he was driven to it by the company's impossible demands for compensation after an incident. An incident, they alleged, that was merely a case of an alpha losing control of his pheromones during an unexpected rut. Caleb's hand tightened on the half-eaten sandwich in his lap as he heard the sound of footsteps on the floating staircase. He quickly powered off his phone. Julian Sterling descended into the room, a departure from his usual sharply tailored suits. Dressed in a cream-colored cashmere turtleneck, he seemed less imposing, the severe lines of his jaw softened by the fabric, though it did little to diminish the formidable aura that clung to him like a second skin. A chime from Caleb's phone cut through the morning stillness. It was a message from the clinic's administrative assistant, a reminder that his appointment for glandular removal surgery was at 10 and that he needed to be there 30 minutes early for pre-op. He silenced the phone, his heart hammering against his ribs. When he looked up, Julian's gaze was already on him, his eyes cool and unreadable. A flush of guilt crept up Caleb's neck. He offered a weak explanation that it was just spam. Julian merely nodded. He then made an offer that sent a fresh wave of panic through Caleb. He was heading in the same direction and could give him a ride to campus. Caleb knew that every minute of Julian Sterling's time was worth a fortune, and the thought of inconveniencing his guardian, even for a moment, filled him with a familiar sense of inadequacy. Yet, the proposal was intoxicating. The chance to spend even a few minutes in his presence was a powerful lure, even if it meant skipping the class he was supposed to be attending to go to the hospital instead. He quickly agreed, stuffing the rest of the sandwich into his mouth and grabbing his backpack from the housekeeper. Inside the climate-controlled silence of the luxury sedan as it wound its way down from the hills overlooking the city, the air grew thick. An almost imperceptible trace of a top-tier alpha's pheromones began to weave a subtle net, ensnaring anyone with something to hide. Caleb's instincts screamed at him to open a window, but a touch of the controls revealed the child locks were engaged. Julian asked what was wrong, and Caleb, forcing his voice to remain steady, murmured that it was nothing. He dug his nails into his palm, the sharp sting a welcome distraction. He decided to set the stage for his recovery period, explaining to Julian that he would be staying away from home for a while due to a club activity. He knew a gland removal surgery would require time to heal, and it was safer to keep his distance. He also knew Julian's schedule was relentless. It was unlikely his absence would even be noticed. As expected, Julian didn't press for details. His attention remained on the road, one hand effortlessly guiding the wheel. His eyes flickered to Caleb for a brief, unreadable moment before returning to the traffic. He asked if there was anything else Caleb needed to tell him. The question hung in the air, Caleb unsure if it was routine or born of suspicion. He denied having anything more to say, a fresh wave of regret washing over him for accepting the ride. Lying to Julian was an agonizing task. The man's natural authority, even without the use of pheromones, made deceit feel like a physical impossibility. When the car stopped, Julian adjusted the collar on Caleb's jacket, a rare, fleeting gesture of care, before unlocking the doors. As Caleb watched the car disappear into the city traffic, he fought the urge to touch the back of his neck, where his glands felt unusually warm. He had taken a powerful black market suppressant that morning, a risky drug with severe side effects that was usually effective. It was supposed to mask his own pheromones and block the influence of others. But perhaps due to frequent use, his body was building a tolerance. It wasn't working today. Instead, a profound anxiety settled in his gut, the terror of being exposed before a powerful alpha. The news story from breakfast replayed in his mind. A stark. Every employee at Sterling Corporation understood the cardinal rule. Tardiness, mistakes, even failed deals were forgivable. Uncontrolled pheromones were not. Julian's aversion was absolute, a deep-seated revulsion that was more than an allergy. It was a fundamental rejection at a cellular level. His offices were perpetually ventilated, stocked with industrial-grade scent blockers, and he was always provided with a private, isolated space at any public function. It was his ultimate trigger, the one line that could not be crossed. The alpha who had taken his own life was a department head Caleb had seen a couple of times. Someone who had been with the company since Julian first took over, long before Caleb was brought from the group home. If someone with that level of seniority faced such a devastating end, Caleb could only imagine his own fate. The promise Julian had made, that he would always care for him as long as he was obedient, would be nullified the moment his Omega status was revealed. No, the consequence for such a deception would likely be far worse. Caleb ducked into a small coffee shop near the campus, where he ran into Leo, a friend from high school and the only person who knew his secret. Leo's arm came around his shoulders, his expression concerned. He questioned if Caleb was truly decided on this, asking if it was really worth it for a guardian who barely seemed to notice him. Away from Julian's oppressive presence, Caleb felt a flicker of his usual defiance. He shrugged off Leo's arm and confirmed that it was. Despite the cold reality that his adoption was a strategic move to silence the Sterling family elders after Julian's parents died. A way to counter their whispers about Julian's pheromone aversion, making him unfit to continue the family line, Caleb felt a fierce, complicated loyalty. Julian, then just 20, had made a near-ludicrous declaration to the 9-year-old Caleb that he was now his son and had made it stick. Now that Julian's power was absolute, Caleb often wondered how long he would be kept around. Was it affection, or merely the maintenance of a carefully constructed public image? Whatever the reason, Julian could abandon him for anything, but it could not be because he was an Omega. He used Leo's identification for the hospital appointment. The process, facilitated by Leo's father, a department head at the hospital, went smoothly until the final consultation. The surgery was denied. Staring down at the detailed report bearing Leo's name, Caleb felt a surge of bitter irony. The words blurred. In the noisy corridor, Leo tried to explain the situation. Omegas were already a rarity, but Caleb's tests showed he was an outlier. A specimen of such high quality that the hospital was legally obligated to report him to a federal registry for genetic preservation and mandated pairing. His father had barely managed to keep the initial report from being filed. No legitimate hospital would ever agree to the removal. There was only one other way. Caleb stopped walking and met his friend's hesitant gaze. Leo finished his sentence with a grimace, explaining that the only alternative was to permanently damage the glands, to render them useless. He immediately advised against it, saying the pain would be unbearable. Just then, Caleb's phone vibrated. The name on the screen made a dry, humorless sound escape his lips. He clapped Leo on the shoulder, his decision made. He told him they would go with that option. Nothing could be more painful than being abandoned by Julian. As Leo sputtered, calling him insane, Caleb simply hushed him and stepped outside, finding a bench on the manicured lawn. He took a deep breath before answering the call. He preemptively offered a cheerful, fabricated story about playing basketball with friends. The question of what was wrong was met with the same feigned innocence. Calling Julian Dad felt foreign, not just because of the lie, but because opportunities to use the title were so rare. In the early years after the adoption, Julian had been consumed by corporate warfare and grief, leaving the sprawling mansion feeling empty and cold. Caleb's days were spent waiting on a sofa by the door for Julian's infrequent returns. He would come home late, smelling of expensive liquor, but always maintaining a stoic self-control. Caleb would help him to his room, draw a bath, and only then would Julian show a flicker of warmth, a hand on his head, a murmured word of praise. As Caleb got older, their lives diverged further, their interactions reduced to the occasional, perfunctory exchange, with Julian's assistant handling any of Caleb's material needs. Julian's voice on the other end of the line, laced with an unfamiliar, chilling amusement, pulled Caleb from his reverie. He revealed that his detour to drop Caleb off had been a cover. His actual destination had been the university, where he was scheduled as a guest lecturer for the freshman business school. He had intended to surprise Caleb. The words landed like blows, each one driving the air from Caleb's lungs. He felt a suffocating darkness envelop him, even under the bright afternoon sun. Julian's tone hardened, each word precise and cold, as he pointed out the distinct lack of basketball courts at the hospital. He wondered aloud if Caleb's friend was a liar. The voice from the phone merged with a voice directly behind him. A heavy hand pressed down on his shoulder, the weight both grounding and terrifying. Julian's voice, now a low murmur in his ear, finished the sentence he had started on the phone, asking, or if Caleb was the liar. Leo shot up from the bench beside him, cursing under his breath before belatedly trying to shield Caleb. From the moment Julian's hand had landed on his shoulder, Caleb felt paralyzed, his fingers crushing the medical report. His mind, a chaotic storm of fear, couldn't process how Julian had found him. It was a statistical impossibility. The CEO of Sterling Corporation, a man with a private medical team on 24-hour standby, had no reason to be at a public hospital. Julian's gaze moved past Leo, his expression unreadable as it settled on the crumpled paper in Caleb's hand. He didn't comment on it, instead gesturing to Caleb's jeans. He stated, as a matter of fact, that those weren't the pants he had been wearing that morning. They weren't. The original pair had been a gift from Julian, one of the few he'd ever picked out himself on a business trip abroad. The housekeeper had laid them out, and with Julian nearby, Caleb couldn't refuse to wear them. Fearing he might get them dirty at the hospital, he had changed at the dorm. Before Caleb could process this new layer of exposure, Julian plucked the report from his numb fingers. Time seemed to freeze as Julian's elegant hands smoothed the wrinkled paper. The silence was deafening. Caleb's mind, which had been racing to invent new lies, simply shut down. Under the weight of Julian's scrutiny, his brain's self-preservation kicked in and surrendered. He imagined the best-case scenario. Julian, ever the pragmatist, would offer him a generous severance package and a quiet dismissal. The worst-case scenario mirrored the fate of the disgraced alpha manager. Death seemed insignificant compared to the unbearable thought of Julian looking at him with even a hint of disgust. Julian's face remained a mask. He simply said home and opened the passenger door of his car. The drive back was a blur of speed and suffocating tension. The air in the car, once merely thick with unspoken things, was now saturated with a potent, unrestrained S-class pheromone. The black market suppressants had failed completely. Caleb could now smell the faint, cool scent of his own mint pheromones leaking into the oppressive atmosphere. It was a scent that should have been clarifying, but mixed with Julian's, it ignited a feverish heat within him. He hated his own body with a sudden, violent intensity. What good was being a rare omega if the one person he wanted to please found any scented body repulsive? It was worse than useless. It was garbage. Julian brought the car to a screeching halt in the driveway and unbuckled his seatbelt. His lips moved, but Caleb's hearing was gone, replaced by a roaring in his ears. He saw Julian get out and stride into the house. Caleb struggled to focus, his body thrumming with a strange, desperate craving to touch Julian, to be held by him. The thought of destroying his own glands resurfaced, a frantic, desperate impulse. If he could eliminate the scent, Julian might still keep him. A bodyguard opened his door, his voice strained. He relayed that Mr. Sterling wanted him inside. The fresh air was a shock, and Caleb realized he was drenched in sweat. As he stepped out of the car, his legs gave way, and he collapsed to his knees. The bodyguard, his face pale and tight from the pheromonal pressure, asked what he had done to provoke such a reaction from Julian. Through a haze of pain and arousal, Caleb managed to ask if the guard could smell any other scent besides his father's. The guard, confused but honest, shook his head, admitting that Mr. Sterling's pheromones were so overpowering they eclipsed everything else. A small measure of relief washed over Caleb. After changing his clothes, Caleb went to the soundproofed room at the end of the hall, a space he hadn't entered in years. He stepped into the darkness, walked to the center, and knelt. With no windows, the only light came from the red recording indicators on the security cameras in each corner. In the oppressive silence, his own erratic heartbeat was a deafening drum. He replayed the scene at the hospital. Leo, in a moment of desperate brilliance, had launched into a dramatic performance. He had tearfully confessed to Julian that it was his surgery, that Caleb was only there for support. He claimed Caleb refused to be with him because of Julian's hatred of pheromones, so he had decided to have his own glands removed. For good measure, he declared that they were deeply in love. The lie had been flawless. Julian had torn up the report, his expression almost pitying as he remarked it was a shame they could never be together. He explained that unbonded superior omegas, once identified, were subject to a government program of compulsory mate matching with highly compatible alphas. Caleb owed Leo everything for that lie, for an alpha to debase himself by pretending to be an omega for his sake. He didn't know how long he knelt until the pain became overwhelming. Julian's pheromones had nearly triggered a full heat, and to suppress it, he had administered another dose of the inhibitor. The cumulative effect of the drug was agonizing. A low groan escaped his lips. He bit down hard, forcing his body upright. He couldn't show weakness. Julian could be watching through the cameras right now. But the pain was relentless. After another muffled cry, the room was suddenly flooded with blinding white light. Before his eyes could adjust, a cold, soft voice, laced with a terrifying tenderness, called his name. Julian was in the room. He had been there the whole time. He moved closer and knelt before him, his long fingers tilting Caleb's chin up. His voice was a hypnotic whisper as he asked if Caleb was feeling unwell. The touch seared his skin. It was only then, staring into Julian's face, that Caleb realized the room was now filled with a different kind of pheromonal scent. It wasn't the oppressive wave from the car. It was a subtle, intoxicating pull, a siren song beckoning him towards certain doom. He managed to deny any discomfort, the lie absurd given his state. Julian's voice was low as he wondered aloud how Caleb had become so dishonest. The hand on his chin suddenly clamped down, the grip firm and unforgiving. He mused on what he should do with him. The cocktail of drugs, pheromones, and pain forced another small sound from Caleb's throat. Julian's eyebrows lifted slightly. He released his grip, stood, and then moved closer, his abdomen now inches from Caleb's face. The heat radiating from his body was palpable. Caleb's gaze was fixed on the metallic gleam of Julian's belt buckle, fighting the urge to look lower. He knew the devil that hid beneath Julian's composed exterior. On the day he'd adopted him, Julian had chosen him from the group home, the battered, silent child, over healthier, more suitable betas. He had insisted on treating Caleb's wounds himself, pressing just a little too hard, his eyes gleaming with a strange fascination at Caleb's pain. Caleb had learned early how to appease this man, how to ensure he would never be sent back to that squalid place. This room, with its cameras and his willing submission, was part of that. Julian's current implication was unmistakable. Caleb's trembling hands went to the belt buckle, fumbling with the clasp. Julian's hand covered his, guiding his fingers until the leather strap was free. Caleb held it out with both hands, his gaze devout. A quiet question cut through the charged air. Julian wanted to know if Leo was his boyfriend. It took a moment for Caleb to understand. He gave the safest answer he could think of, stating that if Julian disliked him, he would never see him again. The pain was becoming unbearable, his knees threatening to give out. A strong hand steadied him. Julian, his face a canvas of conflicting emotions, asked another question. Had they done it? Caleb, desperate for the punishment to begin and end, quickly answered that they had. He knew Julian's vision was sharp enough in the dark to have seen him sitting, not kneeling, earlier. It was better to confess. He pushed the belt forward again, begging Julian to get his anger out. Julian took the belt. Caleb closed his eyes, bracing for the impact that never came. The sound of the door closing echoed in the sudden silence. Julian had left him alone, unpunished. This was worse, far worse than any physical pain. For days, Caleb returned home from campus, a departure from his earlier plan, but Julian was never there. The feeling of a blade hanging over his head grew more acute with each passing day. At the university cafeteria, Leo slid into the seat opposite him, complaining that Caleb had been avoiding him. He asked if his guardian had given him trouble after that day. Caleb shook his head, remaining silent. Leo suggested it was time for Caleb to leave, that he was a high-grade Omega with options. He even offered to introduce him to some older kindergarten students. Caleb's patience snapped. He put down his fork and asked if Leo was finished. His cold stare was enough to silence his friend. As Leo took a sip of water, Caleb asked him to find a drug that could destroy his scent glands. Leo choked, spraying a mouthful of water and food across the table. Caleb, anticipating the reaction, was already standing with his backpack on. He reminded Leo of a past debt, telling him to consider this a favor. He added that Leo should stay away from him from now on. He didn't want to anger Julian again. As he walked away, he heard Leo's infuriated shout, calling him a ruthless psycho. The Cold War with Julian continued. The silence was heavier than their usual distance. It had been nearly 2 weeks without contact when Leo finally delivered the medication. A small syringe filled with a pale pink liquid. He asked Caleb if he was absolutely sure. Once injected, the glands would be irreversibly destroyed. He couldn't understand what made Julian worth such a sacrifice. Caleb simply held the syringe, a sense of finality settling over him. Leo didn't understand. Sometimes Caleb didn't understand either. But it was Julian who had pulled him from misery, who had promised to care for him without asking for anything in return. For that, anything was worth it. Leo made one last attempt, suggesting that Caleb could use his pheromones to seduce Julian, that no alpha could resist. Caleb refused. That was the one thing Julian despised. As he prepared the injection, a call came from Julian's secretary. Mr. Sterling was in the hospital. When he arrived, the syringe still in his pocket, Julian's executive assistant met him in the hallway. He explained that the suicide of the project manager had unleashed a storm of corporate and public relations disasters. Julian's pheromone aversion had been leaked to the press and was being twisted into a narrative of discrimination. The assistant revealed the truth. The manager had been caught selling company secrets. Faced with massive financial restitution, he had resorted to a desperate, malicious act, forcing an Omega in heat into Julian's office. He had systematically provoked Julian, triggering his deepest aversion and pushing him into a rage. The fallout had been disastrous. The manager's family, manipulated by a rival corporation, was now publicly slandering Julian. The assistant explained that Julian hadn't slept for days, dealing with the legal and personal attacks. The stress had finally caused him to collapse, triggering a severe rut. Caleb's hand froze on the doorknob. The assistant, oblivious, continued, saying that since Caleb was a beta, he was the perfect person to look after his father. Before Caleb could protest, the assistant opened the door and ushered him into the dark, silent hospital room. No one knew, not even Julian seemed to remember, that they had met once before the adoption. Julian had been a teenager, not yet an adult, and Caleb just a small child. He only remembered fragments. Julian, flushed and feverish, hiding in the garden behind the group home. His eyes, a stunning shade of gray, shot through with blood. He'd been drugged, forced into an early rut. He had warned the small, grimy child approaching him to stay away, that he wanted to kill someone. But Caleb, young and fearless, had simply opened his arms and said he missed his mom, that it was his birthday and he was allowed out for an hour. It was a lie. He'd never had parents. He had been taught that wealthy people were easy targets. As his small hand reached for Julian's wallet, Julian's sharp teeth sank into his shoulder. The pain was blinding. A long moment passed before Julian regained his composure, his voice calm as he asked if it hurt. Caleb shook his head. As he tried to leave with the wallet, Julian stopped him, calling him a little liar. He told him to take the cash but leave the wallet. It had a tracker. The money had saved Caleb from a beating. But it was the faint, pained smile on Julian's face, his lips still stained with blood, that had haunted him for years. He stood by the door, the memory fading as he heard a ragged voice from within tell him to come in. The private room was sealed, the heavy curtains blocking all light, the walls designed to contain the overwhelming scent of an alpha in rut. He was walking into a trap. He hadn't taken his emergency suppressant, believing he wouldn't see Julian. Just standing at the threshold, his body began to weaken. From the shadows near the window, Julian's voice, a coaxing whisper, called his name, telling him to come closer. Caleb took 2 steps before his legs buckled and he fell, catching himself on his hands. Julian watched him, his posture impossibly calm and commanding. His voice was a soft, chilling command to crawl. The 3 words sent a tremor of fear and anticipation through him. He fought the impulse to flee, his body obeying. The short distance to the bed was an agonizing journey. The back of his neck burned, a sensation that ignited the long-faded bite mark hidden beneath his collar. A wave of heat, fierce and unfamiliar, washed over him. His body was betraying him, succumbing to a pheromone-induced heat. He looked up, desperate to see if Julian had noticed. Perhaps he had, or perhaps an alpha in the throes of a rut was beyond reason. Julian's face was a mask of tightly controlled violence, but there was no disgust in his eyes. As Caleb drew near, Julian knelt, just as he had in the other dark room. His fingers found the burning glands on Caleb's neck, his touch light, almost teasing. Then, just as abruptly, he pulled his hand away, his thumb and forefinger closing around Caleb's throat. His voice was dangerously soft as he asked if Leo, the alpha he'd claimed to be with, had ever marked him. Caleb felt trapped in a waking nightmare where the truth was a weapon turned against him. His own pheromones, a scent of cool mint, were now pouring from him uncontrollably, mingling with the rich, incense-like fragrance of Julian's rut. It was a combination that should have been calming but was instead driving him mad. He heard himself answer, a desperate plea, that Leo was not his alpha. An alpha in a rut is not a creature of logic. The grip on his throat tightened, and Julian's voice was relentless as he asked who was. Through a haze of desire and fear, Caleb gave him the answer he demanded. He begged his father to mark him. A slow, dangerous smile spread across Julian's face. He leaned in, his lips brushing against Caleb's neck. He murmured that at a time like this, calling him Dad was not appropriate. When he awoke, Julian's arm was a heavy, possessive weight around his waist, their skin hot to the touch. His neck throbbed with a pain that was deeper and more savage than any beating he'd ever endured. But because it came from Julian, it wasn't pain. Julian was still asleep, his long lashes casting shadows on his cheeks. His breathing was shallow, his brow furrowed. He looked vulnerable, his hair a mess, his skin covered in scratches left by Caleb's own hands. He had never expected to have this, to be this close. He had only ever wanted to be near Julian, to love him from a distance. And now he had pulled his idol down into the mud with him. He had taken advantage of Julian's rut, knowing he would be unable to resist an Omega's heat. When Julian woke, his revulsion of pheromones and of Caleb would be absolute. He quietly slipped out of bed, gathered his torn clothes, and threw them away, pulling on a spare shirt Julian had brought. As he gently wiped Julian's face with a cool cloth, he realized the intense heat radiating from his body wasn't just from the rut. Julian was burning with fever. The assistant's words came back to him. Julian had been sick when his rut began. The realization of the alpha's sheer power, even when ill, was terrifying. He tidied the room, trying to restore some semblance of order before the assistant returned. He only had to face the doctor, whose knowing, hesitant gaze was more than enough. The doctor's question about his own well-being was met with a quick shake of his head. He deflected, asking the doctor to check on his father's fever. The look on the doctor's face deepened. Between the temporary mating mark on his neck and the thick scent of their combined pheromones, there was no need for explanations. His phone buzzed. It was Leo. He stepped into the corridor to answer. Leo arrived at the hospital in a panic. The situation was worse than Caleb could have imagined. His falsified medical report had been discovered by Leo's father's superior. The government had been alerted to the presence of an unregistered superior Omega, and federal agents were now conducting a search. Leo stopped mid-sentence, his eyes widening in horror as he stared at Caleb's neck. He swore, realizing Caleb had been marked by an S-class alpha. Caleb quickly pulled him out to a deserted courtyard, explaining that it was Julian, that he had been in his rut, and that Caleb had taken advantage. Leo vehemently disagreed, arguing it was impossible. He said an alpha like Julian, who loathed pheromones, would have been on blockers. He insisted that all alphas were manipulative when it came to claiming their omegas. He pointed out how suspicious it was that Julian's assistant had specifically brought Caleb to the room. He reminded Caleb that Julian had never believed his story at the hospital, that the look in his eyes had been one of pure possession. Caleb confessed that Julian had asked if they had done it, and he had misunderstood the question, thinking he meant sat down. Leo looked like he was about to have a stroke, backing away as if Caleb were contagious. Then Caleb's blood ran cold. The syringe was gone. The vial of pink liquid that would have destroyed his glands was missing. It must have fallen out of his pocket. As he frantically searched his pants, Leo grabbed his wrist, telling him that destroying his glands now was insane. He said if he didn't want to be taken by the government, his only option was to let Julian bond with him permanently. The suggestion was so absurd it was laughable. Leo, seeing his expression, stammered out another, even more insane idea, that perhaps he could mark Caleb himself. A voice, cold and laced with a sickly sweetness, cut through the air, asking what more Leo intended to do. Julian was standing there, his tall frame blocking the sun. Leo yelped and then fell silent. Caleb forced himself to speak, his voice barely a whisper as he called him Dad. Julian strode past him, his focus entirely on Leo. His voice was dangerously calm as he wondered aloud what the esteemed Dr. Lynch, a leading hematologist, would think if he knew his son was sexually harassing an Omega already marked by another Alpha. He turned to Caleb and asked if he needed him to call the police. Caleb could only blush, the heat spreading across his face under Julian's intense gaze. By the time he looked up, Leo had vanished after wishing them a long and happy life together. He avoided Julian's eyes, unable to guess what was coming next. Then Julian held out his hand. In his palm was the small pink syringe. He asked if it was his. There was no point in lying anymore. Caleb nodded. As his fingers brushed against the vial in Julian's palm, Julian's other arm wrapped around him, pulling him into a fierce embrace. The scent of Julian himself, more potent and overwhelming than his pheromones, enveloped Caleb. It was the scent of pure possession. Caleb felt a surge of despair. He pleaded for the drug, promising that if he destroyed the glands, he wouldn't produce pheromones, wouldn't be an object of disgust for Julian anymore. Julian's body went rigid. The arm around Caleb's waist tightened painfully. His voice was a raw whisper against Caleb's hair. He asked if Caleb wanted him to personally destroy his own Omega. "Caleb," he murmured, "you little liar. After all these years, you're still as reckless as ever." The vial in his hand shattered, glass and pink liquid mixing with the blood that welled from his palm, the sight instantly transporting Caleb back to their first meeting. Julian remembered. He had always remembered. Julian's voice was low as he asked if a permanent bond was what was needed to keep the government from taking him. Caleb stammered, confused, asking why, when Julian hated pheromones, when he had only adopted him because he was a beta. Julian released him, his fingers gently tracing the faint, old scar on Caleb's shoulder through the fabric of his shirt. His body was still warm from the fever. He said that with Caleb, it was never a problem. He took Caleb's hand, his fingers slowly intertwining with his own. He stated that once he was discharged, they would go and dissolve the adoption. He had been betrayed by those he trusted most. His own aunt, in a bid for control of the sterling fortune, had conspired to have him drugged before his 16th birthday, forcing him into a premature, violent rut. The omega they pushed on him, the cloying scent of their pheromones, had made him feel like a puppet, his body hijacked by urges he despised. He had shattered a glass, using the pain from the cut on his hand to clear his head long enough to escape through a window, leaving the stunned omega behind. He had run until he found himself hiding in the darkness, waiting for his security team, when he saw the child. He'd never seen a child so filthy. The sight of him nearly sent him over the edge again. He told him to leave, terrified he might kill him. The boy was covered in dirt, but his eyes were brighter than any diamond he had ever seen in his mother's jewelry box. But the boy's heart was as dark as his own aunt's. He lied to get close, to steal his money. In retaliation, Julian bit him. He watched the boy's shirt turn red and then, as a strange act of mercy, warned him about the tracker in the wallet. The boy's shocked, dumbfounded expression was not one of a hardened thief. It was almost sweet. For years after, he was haunted by those eyes. After his parents' sudden death, whenever the pressure became too much, he would drive to that group home and watch the boy from a distance. He was always covered in fresh bruises. A beta in the system had no chance of being adopted. The staff ignored him, the other children isolated him. He was like a block of wood, absorbing every blow without complaint. One day, Julian overheard someone forcing him to go out and steal. The boy obeyed, but he walked far away from the home and sat on a rock for a long time. Then, with a look of grim determination, he moved the rock and dug with his bare hands until he unearthed a plastic bag. Inside were the foreign bills Julian recognized as his own. The boy, who likely had no idea of their true value, had been tormented by the fortune he held. Julian's assistant reminded him he was late. For the first time, he felt an indescribable emotion. The little liar put the money back and covered it with the rock. When he returned to the group home empty-handed, he was inevitably beaten. Julian was miles away when his security team reported how severe the beating had been. Despite being late for a critical meeting, he ordered the car to turn around. When the boy saw him, he flinched and tried to hide among the other children. Assuming Julian didn't remember him, Julian played along, asking casually if he was a beta. It didn't matter what he was. He had told him, "Be obedient, and I'll always take care of you." What he had meant was, "You don't have to be anything, and I will always take care of you." He did have a line that could not be crossed. But if the one crossing it was Caleb, then it didn't matter.